Everyone laughed when she decided to marry a black man. Years later, her life becomes an example of success and leaves everyone deeply envious. Emma Johnson sat nervously at the dining room table, her heart racing as she thought about the conversation she was about to have with her parents. The soft afternoon light filtered through the curtains, creating a cozy atmosphere, but the tension in the air was palpable. John and Mary Johnson, her parents, sat across from her looking expectantly, but also with a hint of distrust. Emma took a deep breath and with a firm voice began, "Dad, Mom, I have something important to share with you. I'm engaged." John raised an eyebrow, his gaze becoming more intense. "Engaged? And who is the lucky one?" He spoke with a tone of sarcasm, but there was a seriousness in his eyes that did not go unnoticed. "It's David Turner," Emma replied, the determination in her voice contrasting with the anxiety in her chest. "We love each other and have decided that we want to spend the rest of our lives together." John's expression transformed into a mix of disbelief and anger. "David Turner? Are you talking about that guy? He's black and from a humble background. Emma, this is a mistake. You have to understand that." Mary, sensing the intensity of the situation, tried to intervene. "John, maybe we should listen to Emma. Love is more important than the color of someone's skin or their background." "This isn't just about love, Mary," John interrupted, his voice elevated. "It's about our family, our reputation, what the community will think. Do you really think he's the kind of man our daughter should marry?" Emma, feeling betrayed by her father's words, stood up from the table, emotions raw. "I can't believe you're saying this. What matters to me is that David loves me and I love him. I won't let your outdated opinions dictate my happiness." She stormed out of the room, feeling more determined than ever. Outside, the rain began to fall, echoing the turmoil within Emma. She needed to find David. In the small apartment they shared, the atmosphere was warm and welcoming, a refuge from the chaos surrounding her. Upon entering, she found David sitting on the couch, a smile lighting up his face. "Hey, you look worried," he said, standing up to embrace her. Emma melted into his arms, feeling the safety he always provided, but the worry soon returned, and she began to explain the situation. "I told them about our engagement," Emma confessed, her voice trembling. "And my dad? He didn't accept it. He yelled at me, David. He thinks I'm making a mistake by marrying you." David looked at her, his expression serious. "I'm sorry, Emma, I knew this could happen. Your family is traditional, right?" "Too traditional," she replied, anger and sadness intertwining in her voice. "But I don't care. I love you, and that's all that matters to me." David smiled, his eyes filled with love and understanding. "And I love you. Let's celebrate this. How about a romantic dinner? Just the two of us." Emma nodded, and soon they were in the kitchen preparing a dish they both loved, pasta with pesto sauce. As they cooked, the atmosphere became light and fun. They laughed and danced to a soft tune filling the space. After dinner, while enjoying a glass of wine, Emma glanced at her phone and saw a message from Sarah, her best friend. "Hey, Emma, I'm so happy for you. But what about your family's reaction? Have you thought about that?" The message hit Emma like a bucket of cold water. "Sarah is worried too," she murmured, feeling a weight in her stomach. "She doesn't believe this will work out." David noticed the shift in her mood. "Emma, what matters is that we're together. We can't let other people's opinions bring us down." "I know," she replied, looking into his eyes, seeking comfort. "But the pressure is enormous. I don't want to lose my friends, and especially not my family. We'll face this together just like we always have," David said, holding her hand. "I'll be by your side, no matter what happens." Emma smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "You're right. We'll face this together." And in that moment she knew that, despite all the challenges, their love was stronger. Emma was sitting on the couch in the living room, watching the sunlight filter through the curtains. The soft glow lit up the space, but it couldn't dispel the cloud of tension hanging between her and Sarah. After the engagement, Emma had hoped her best friends would be by her side, celebrating the love she felt for David. However, Sarah's visit was filled with palpable discomfort. "Emma, you really should think more carefully about this decision," Sarah said, concern etched on her face. "You have no idea what you're putting at risk." Emma frowned, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "What do you mean by that? You can't be serious. David is an amazing person, and I love him. I can't just ignore that because of what others think. I know you love him, But society isn't just going to accept this. You're going to face a lot of resistance, and I don't want to see you get hurt. But I don't expect you to protect me from everything. I want you to support me." Emma's voice rose in pitch, frustration overflowing. "You should be happy for me. This is an important moment in my life." Sarah hesitated, searching for the right words. "Emma, I'm concerned for you. It's not just about you and David. It's about everything that comes with it. What will your family say? What will the neighbors think? And what if you lose everything?" Emma felt as if a knife had been plunged into her chest. Sarah's gaze, once a safe harbor, now felt like judgment. "I can't live my life in fear of what others will think. David is the person I've chosen, and you should respect that." The conversation reached an impasse. Sarah tried to argue, but Emma, feeling betrayed and misunderstood, decided she needed time away from the friendship she once considered essential. "I think I need some space. I'll focus on my new life now." Sarah opened her mouth, but Emma didn't let her speak. She stood up from the couch, determination pulsating in her heart, and left the house, slamming the door behind her. As she walked through the city streets, she felt the weight of her decision on her shoulders. It was a difficult choice, but the idea of giving up David was not an option. The intimate dinner Emma and David had planned to celebrate their engagement should have been a moment of joy, but the shadow of her conversation with Sarah still lingered over her. When David saw her enter, his smile lit up the room. "You look beautiful, my love," he exclaimed, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "Thank you, David. I went through some things today," Emma confessed, trying to sort her thoughts. "Do you want to talk about it?" David asked, concerned. "You seem distant." "It's just, Sarah isn't happy for me. She thinks I'm making a mistake, and that left me confused." Emma pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "I don't want anyone interfering in what we have. Emma, you don't need to worry about what others think. What matters is what we both feel. Our love is stronger." David smiled, holding her hand. "Let's make this dinner a celebration of what we have. Just the two of us." The dinner began, and Emma allowed herself to relax, forgetting her worries for a moment. They shared laughter and dreams for the future. The food was delicious, and the wine flowed. But in the back of her mind, Sarah's message still echoed. When Emma's phone buzzed on the table, her heart raced as she saw Sarah's name on the screen. Hesitant, she decided not to answer. "Let it go, David. I don't want to think about that right now." "I understand," David said, sensing the internal battle she faced. "But don't forget that you're not alone. I'll always be here, no matter what happens." Emma smiled, feeling a little lighter, but the absence of Sarah during the celebration still weighed heavily in her heart. Deep down, she knew their friendship was in crisis, and the pain of that separation was a burden she still had to bear. Emma was sitting at her parents' kitchen table, her gaze fixed on the plate of food she had barely touched. The familiar aromas of home couldn't warm her heart, which was filled with uncertainties. John, her father, watched her with a mix of disappointment and anger, while Mary, her mother, tried to ease the tension. "Emma, you can't be serious. A marriage with David is a colossal mistake. You need to think about your family, about what people will say," John said, his deep voice echoing in the room. "Dad, I can't just ignore what I feel for David. He's an amazing man and I love him. What else matters?" Emma replied, her determination evident in every word. She felt like she was fighting for everything she believed in, but the pressure from her family was overwhelming. "You're being naive, Emma. The world out there isn't what you imagine. You will face criticism and prejudice. It's not just a question of love, it's a question of reality," John insisted, his frustration apparent. Mary, sensing the growing tension, tried to intervene. "Dear, maybe we should listen to Emma. Love is powerful, and she has the right to choose who she wants to be with. But that choice is going to destroy our family. Do you really want your mother and me to be embarrassed?" John retorted, his voice rising. Emma, feeling increasingly suffocated, stood up abruptly. "I won't apologize for how I feel. If you can't accept this, then maybe I need to reconsider what it means to be part of this family." With those words, she left the house, her heart racing but her mind resolute. The next day, Emma and David were at a small restaurant, celebrating their engagement with an intimate dinner. The atmosphere was light and filled with laughter, a stark contrast to the tension Emma had left behind. "I can't believe we're finally here together," David said, holding Emma's hand across the table. "You look so beautiful, and this is all a dream for me." "It's a dream worth living, David. I don't care what others think. Our love is what matters," Emma replied, her eyes shining with hope. But suddenly her phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Sarah, her longtime friend. "Emma, I really hope you've thought this through. I don't want you to get hurt." Emma's smile faltered for a moment. "Sarah doesn't understand. She should be happy for me," she murmured, worry creeping into her thoughts. David noticed the change in her expression. "Emma, you don't need to worry about what Sarah thinks. What matters is that we're together, and we'll face this side by side." As David tried to comfort her, Emma couldn't shake the weight of the disapproval she felt. She wanted her friendship with Sarah to be strong enough to survive this new phase of her life, but her friend's words haunted her. As the days passed, Emma decided to distance herself from Sarah. The friendship that had once been a refuge now seemed more like a source of pain. She and David began planning their wedding, but Sarah's absence was a constant echo in her life. Emma felt torn between loyalty to her friend and her passion for David. After the wedding, Emma resolved to try to reconcile with her parents. She knew the path would be difficult, but she needed them in her life. On a cloudy afternoon, she showed up at the Johnsons' house, her heart racing. "Mom, Dad, I'd like to talk," she said, her voice trembling. John looked at her with disdain. "What's there to talk about, Emma? You made your choice, you married him. For us, that hasn't changed anything. I want you to meet David. He's a man of character, and I truly love him. Please give him a chance," Emma pleaded, feeling tears threatening to fall. "A chance? For what? For you to regret it? We can't accept this. He's a stranger," Mary replied, her voice filled with sadness. The rejection cut Emma like a knife and she felt lost. "I can't go back, Mom. I chose love, and if you can't accept that, then I don't know what to do," Emma said, pain and frustration spilling over. She turned to David, who was watching from a distance with a worried expression. "Let's go, David, we need to leave." As they walked out, Emma felt torn. The love she had for David was strong, but the desire for her parents' approval consumed her. "Emma, you did what you thought was right. Don't worry about them. We'll get through this together," David said, holding her hand and bringing some comfort. "I know, but it hurts, David. I never wanted things to be this way," Emma replied, sadness in her eyes. But deep down, the promise of facing challenges together kept them united amid the chaos. They knew that despite everything, love would still prevail. David was sitting at his desk, surrounded by piles of documents and reports, when one of his colleagues, a gray-haired man with an authoritative demeanor, approached him. The already tense atmosphere in the office grew even heavier with the disdainful look the colleague cast. "Hey, Turner, do you really think you can change the company with those crazy ideas?" he said, a sarcastic smile on his lips. David took a deep breath, trying to ignore the venom in the words. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined not to let prejudice defeat him. "My project can bring significant results for the team, Mark. You know that," David replied, keeping his voice steady despite the anger boiling inside him. "Just because you can't see beyond your own nose doesn't mean I can't make a difference." Mark let out a derisive laugh, drawing the attention of other colleagues nearby. "Yeah, right. As if your life history could help you here. What do you know about leading a project? You come from a place where people just joke around and settle for what little they have." David felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Mark's words were a cruel reminder of all the stigmas he faced. But instead of letting it get to him, he remembered Emma and the strength she inspired in him. "I know what it's like to fight for every small achievement, Mark, and that makes me stronger than you can imagine. It doesn't matter where I come from, but rather where I'm going." That afternoon, as he prepared to present his project during the meeting, the room was full. David observed the faces of his colleagues as he got ready. Nervousness consumed him, but the thought of Emma calmed him. He took a deep breath and began the presentation. His ideas were innovative and well-structured, and as he spoke, he felt the passion envelop him. The looks began to shift, but deep down, he knew there would still be resistance. After his presentation, while he was trying to absorb the compliments, Mark didn't miss the chance to interrupt. "Do you really think this project is going to work? Let's be honest, David. We all know you don't have the necessary experience, and honestly, who's going to listen to a guy like you coming from where you come from?" Mark's words were like knives, but David remained firm. "I believe my vision is just as valid as yours, Mark. It takes courage to change and innovate. You may not respect me, but I'm not here to seek your approval. I'm here to make a difference and show that everyone has a place in this environment." The meeting ended, and David returned to his desk, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. He knew that despite the support from some colleagues, there was still a lot of prejudice. When he got home, Emma was waiting for him with a smile, and he felt immediately lighter. "How was your day, love?" she asked, noticing the tense expression on his face. David shook his head, a tired smile appearing. A tough day. Mark didn't miss the chance to attack me again, but I did my best. Emma held his hand, looking into his eyes. You're amazing, David. Don't let his words get to you. I believe in you, and I know you will do something great. Thank you, Emma. Your faith in me is all I need to keep fighting. One day I hope everyone sees my value just like you do. David squeezed her hand, feeling the strength she gave him. Despite the difficulties and challenges, David was determined not to give up. He had a dream, and with Emma by his side, he was willing to fight against all adversities that arose in his path. Their love was a fortress, and together, they would face any battle the world threw at them. Emma was radiant in her hospital bed, holding her newborn in her arms. The soft morning light filtered through the window, illuminating the small face of the girl. She had light brown skin, a characteristic that reflected the perfect blend between Emma and David. Emma's heart overflowed with love and joy, but the shadow of prejudice lingered, like a dark cloud that wouldn't dissipate. Look at you, my beautiful girl, Emma said, gazing adoringly at her daughter. You are perfect. The little one smiled, an innocent grin that made Emma's heart squeeze even more. Let's name her Sophia. What do you think, my love? She looked at David, who was sitting beside her, his eyes shining with emotion. I love the name, David replied, his voice soft and full of tenderness. Sophia means wisdom. I hope she has a lot of wisdom to face the world. He leaned in and kissed their daughter's forehead, and Emma felt a wave of protection wash over her body. The happiness in that moment was palpable, but it was soon interrupted by a reality that Emma couldn't ignore. Weeks passed, and Emma and David's life became a delicate balance between joy and challenges. One day, while they were out for a walk with Sophia in the stroller, Emma noticed curious glances and whispered comments from neighbors. She squeezed David's hand, feeling the weight of every stare. Did you hear what they said? Emma murmured, trying to stay calm. They think she doesn't look like us. Don't worry about that, Emma, David replied, his voice firm but filled with understanding. Sophia is perfect, just the way she is. She is a blend of us, and that is something beautiful. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. What if she suffers? What if people are cruel to her? I can't imagine what I'll be able to do to protect her from that. We need to teach her to take pride in who she is, David said, looking into her eyes with determination. Our story is a story of love, and love should always prevail no matter what others say. In a moment of despair, Emma found herself reflecting on the future and the difficulties that could arise. As Sophia began to grow, the external pressure intensified. Malicious stares and hurtful comments became part of their routine, and Emma felt like her daughter was always caught in the crossfire. One afternoon, while David was in a meeting, Emma decided to have a conversation with Sophia. They were sitting on the living room floor surrounded by toys and laughter. Sophia, you know you are loved, right? Emma asked, stroking the girl's hair. Yes, Mommy, Sophia replied, with a wide smile, showing her little baby teeth. I'm your princess. Exactly, Emma said with a sad smile. But I want you to know that sometimes people can be cruel. They may make comments about you and about who you are, and that's not fair. I don't care what they say, Sophia replied with a child's innocence. I just want to play and be happy. Emma felt a lump in her throat, admiring her daughter's courage. You are very strong, my love. But if you ever feel like you need help, you can always count on me and your dad. We will always be here for you. David entered the room at that moment, hearing Emma's last words. He approached and sat down beside them. What's going on here? He asked, with a curious smile. We're talking about how some people can be strange, Emma said, trying to smile. But Sophia is strong, isn't she? Yes, I am, Sophia exclaimed, raising her arms like a superhero. David laughed and pulled her close. And you always will be, Sophia. Never forget that. The conversation left them thoughtful, but Emma still felt the pressure of the outside world. The struggle they would face together was just beginning, and the life they had dreamed of seemed more challenging with each passing day. Yet looking at her daughter and husband beside her, Emma knew that love would always be her greatest strength. Emma and David were excited for their daughter Luna's birthday party. At just 5 years old, the little girl was already a source of joy and hope, and they wanted to celebrate her growth with everyone they loved. However, tension lingered in the air. Emma knew that some guests might be critical, especially because Luna's appearance, with her light brown skin and curly hair, was a reflection of her parents' union. The couple decided to invite both friends and those who had always looked down on their choice of life. On the day of the party, the house was decorated with colorful balloons and a large banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Luna." The smell of freshly baked chocolate cake filled the air, and the laughter of children echoed throughout the space. Emma was in the kitchen, checking the final details when David walked in, grinning widely. "Is everything ready, love?" he asked, grabbing a piece of cake for himself. "Almost," Emma replied, straightening the tablecloth. "I hope everyone behaves. I'm nervous about some guests." David looked at her with affection. "Remember, we're here to celebrate our daughter. What others think doesn't matter. The love we have for her is what really counts." Emma nodded, but her heart was still tight. As guests began to arrive, she saw familiar faces, some smiling and others with doubtful expressions. Among them was Amanda, a longtime friend who had always been outspoken in her opinions. When Amanda entered, Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The party was lively, with children playing and laughing while adults mingled. Emma, trying to stay positive, joined a group of friends, but Amanda soon approached. "Hey Emma, everything looks beautiful," Amanda said, a smile on her face. But Emma sensed tension in the air. "Thanks, Amanda, Luna is so excited," Emma replied, attempting to keep the conversation light. Amanda hesitated for a moment before continuing. "But have you thought about how cruel kids can be? Your daughter might suffer because of her appearance, you know." Those words cut like a knife. Emma felt anger rising. "Do you really think that matters? What matters is how we raise her and the love we give her." "Of course, but—" Amanda started, but Emma interrupted her. "No buts. Luna is an amazing child and she doesn't need your approval to be happy. She is beautiful just the way she is, and anyone who can't see that is wrong." Amanda was silent, shocked by Emma's response, while the party continued. The atmosphere was heavy, but Emma was determined to keep the joy centered around her daughter. The party went on until, during cake time, Amanda made an unfortunate comment. "Luna, you know you look different, right? It's just a fact," Amanda said in a tone that tried to be playful but sounded cruel. Silence fell over the room. Emma felt her heart race and a wave of protectiveness washed over her. David, who was beside her, held her hand, encouraging her to speak up. "Amanda," Emma began, her voice firm, "that's not acceptable. Luna is perfect just the way she is, and I won't accept you belittling her like that in front of everyone." She took a deep breath, looking at the guests. "I want everyone here to understand one thing. Beauty isn't measured by skin color or appearance. What matters is the heart and kindness we carry within us. Luna is a happy and loved little girl, and that's all we should care about." Emma's words echoed through the room, and a murmur of approval began to rise among the guests. David smiled at her, proud. "You're right, Emma," he said, standing up. "Love and acceptance are what we should teach our children, not prejudice." The atmosphere began to shift. Other guests, who had remained silent before, started to express support for Emma and David. That party, which could have been marked by criticism, turned into a moment of unity and celebration. Emma smiled as she saw Luna, radiant, holding her piece of cake, blissfully unaware of any hurtful comments. "Thank you all for being here. Let's celebrate love and diversity," Emma concluded, as applause erupted around her, making the party a true milestone of acceptance. Emma and David felt nervous as they approached the house where a gathering of old school friends was set to take place. The familiar facade of the building seemed so distant from the years they spent there, filled with laughter and adolescent dreams. Now the memories were a mix of nostalgia and anxiety. Emma hesitated on the sidewalk, gripping David's hand tightly. "Are you ready for this?" David asked, sensing the tension in her body. "I don't know. What if they're still the same? What if they don't accept us?" Emma replied, insecurity evident in her voice. "Let's go. It's time to show them who we are now. They need to see that our story is real and that we have nothing to hide." David smiled, encouraging her. With one last deep breath, Emma nodded, and the two entered the house. The familiar smell of pizza and soda invaded their senses, and loud music filled the atmosphere. Familiar faces soon began to appear, some excited to see Emma and David, others hesitant as if unsure how to react. "Emma! David! Look who decided to show up!" shouted Lucas, a former classmate who had always been the class clown. He approached, arms outstretched for a hug. Emma smiled shyly and hugged him while David exchanged glances with some of the other guests. He felt the tension in the air, but also a sense of relief at seeing friendly faces. "How have you been? It's been a while since we last saw each other." Lucas continued, pulling Emma aside. "Wow, you look different. Much more mature." "Thanks, Lucas. I'm happy. And you? What have you been up to?" Emma asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "Oh, you know, adult life, work, commitment. But tell me, what's it like being married to a guy like David?" Lucas paused, his smile becoming somewhat forced. "I mean, what's life like, you know? Between cultures and everything?" David, who had been listening to the conversation, felt a chill run down his spine. He approached, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Life is incredible, Lucas. Love transcends all barriers. Emma taught me that." The other guests began to gather around them, some whispering among themselves. Emma could feel their eyes on her, but she decided she wouldn't let that shake her. "It's good to see all of you again," Emma said, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "David and I have faced many challenges, but together we've overcome everything, and we know that love is stronger than any prejudice." The atmosphere grew tense. Some smiles turned into nervous expressions, but Emma felt it was her time to shine. She turned to the group, her confidence growing. "I know many of you have your opinions about what is right or wrong, but life isn't about what people think of us. It's about who we are and how we love. And I love David. He is my partner, my best friend, and nothing can change that." The murmurs intensified, and David looked at Emma in admiration. He knew she was striving to make her voice heard, and he was proud of her. "That's true, Emma." A female voice stood out among the guests. It was Juliana, an old colleague who had always had a more open perspective. "I think we all need to remember that love should be celebrated, not criticized. Life is too short to worry about what others think." The mood began to shift as more people joined the conversation. David and Emma started to relax, realizing that maybe acceptance was closer than they had imagined. "And what about you, David? How do you feel about all this?" asked one of the colleagues, trying to understand the impact of the situation. "I've learned that it takes courage to love and be loved. Each day brings new challenges, but I wouldn't change a thing. Emma is my choice, and I choose her every day," David replied, feeling the warmth of the growing support around him. Emma smiled, her heart warming with his words. She realized that perhaps the gathering was not just a reunion of old friends, but an opportunity to build new bridges and dismantle old prejudices. The conversation flowed, and for the first time, Emma felt she could be completely herself, without fear of judgment. Emma was at home, watching the soft light of the late afternoon streaming through the living room window. She felt torn between the joy of her new life with David and the sadness of having drifted away from Sarah. The friendship that once felt solid now seemed like a broken bridge. As she pondered this, the sound of the doorbell pulled her from her thoughts. It was Sarah. With her heart racing, Emma hesitated for a moment before opening the door. When she saw her friend's face, a mix of emotions washed over her. Sarah looked pale, with red eyes and a worried expression. "Emma, can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Sure, come in," Emma replied, stepping aside for Sarah to enter. The tension between them was palpable, and Emma sat on the sofa while Sarah remained standing, clearly nervous. I don't know where to start," Sarah said, looking at the floor. "You could start by telling me why you didn't come to my wedding," Emma responded, keeping her voice steady but feeling a tightness in her chest. "We were friends, Sarah." I know, Sarah murmured, her voice choked. "I just couldn't handle it all. I was actually scared. Scared of how people would look at you and David. Scared of how I would feel about it." Emma felt frustration building inside her. "You were scared of me? Of us? I thought you would be the first to support me. I needed you, Sarah. I know, and I'm so sorry. I distanced myself because I was confused. You've always been the strong one, the one who makes the right choices. And me? I felt so insecure about all of this. I didn't know how to deal with the change, with your choice to be with David," Sarah explained, tears streaming down her face. "And it made me angry at myself. So you chose to pull away instead of supporting me?" Emma asked, the pain in her voice evident. "I didn't expect that from you." Sarah finally sat down, as if the weight of her words was unbearable. "I made a mistake, Emma. I should have been by your side cheering for you. I just didn't know how to face my own prejudices. I was cowardly." Emma looked at Sarah, realizing that her friend wasn't just dealing with the situation, but also with her own insecurities. "Sarah, I've forgiven you. What I want most is for us to overcome this. What David and I are experiencing is real and beautiful. There shouldn't be space for insecurities between us. Do you really forgive me? Sarah asked, a glimmer of hope lighting her eyes. Yes, I forgive you, Emma replied, feeling the weight of hurt beginning to lift. But we need to be honest with each other from now on. Friendship is about that. The two looked at each other, a comfortable silence enveloping them, a safe space for reconciliation. I want to be part of your life again, Emma. I want to be part of David's life and your daughter's, Sarah said, her voice stronger. You will always be part of my life, but we need to work on this together, Emma affirmed, a smile starting to form on her face. Let's support each other, no matter what happens. The atmosphere in the room began to change, and the tension that had once existed transformed into a warm feeling of renewal. Emma stood up and hugged Sarah, a gesture symbolizing a fresh start. I've missed our friendship, Emma whispered. I've missed it too, Sarah replied, hugging her back, relieved. I promise I'll be better. I'll learn to accept all parts of you and your life. Let's do this together, Emma said, looking into her friend's eyes. And please, come meet our daughter. She needs aunts and uncles who love her. I would love that. Emma and David were determined to turn their pain into action, so they decided to organize a community event to promote diversity and inclusion in the neighborhood. They believed that by sharing their experiences and showcasing the beauty of differences, they could inspire others to do the same. With the help of friends and neighbors, they prepared a day filled with activities, music, and talks, highlighting the importance of acceptance. It was a sunny morning when the event began. Colorful ribbons hung from the trees, and tables filled with traditional foods from various cultures were set up throughout the park. The smell of homemade food blended with the cheerful music echoing from the stage in the center of the venue. Emma, with a radiant smile, watched her daughter playing with other children. It was a moment of hope. Look, David, our little girl is so happy, Emma exclaimed, pointing to the girl who was running and laughing, carefree in her world. Yes, she is the light of our lives, and today we're here to ensure that other children can shine too, David replied, wrapping his arm around Emma's shoulders. The connection between them was undeniable, and the strength they found in each other was palpable. As the event progressed, Emma took the initiative to address the crowd. With the microphone in her hand, she looked at the gathered audience, her heart racing. Thank you all for being here today. This event is a celebration of who we are and all that we can be together, she began, her voice steady. We live in a world that often tries to divide us by our differences, but our differences are what make us unique and special. Applause erupted in the park, encouraging Emma to continue. When I decided to marry David, I knew we would face challenges, but I never imagined I would have so much support and love. What I have learned is that love is stronger than any prejudice. David moved, watched his wife speak with such passion. He knew this was the essence of their fight. When Emma finished her speech, David stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. I want to thank all of you for being here and for accepting our family. We all have a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Together we can create an environment where everyone feels loved and respected. In the audience, some people began to stand and share their own experiences. A middle-aged woman, tears in her eyes, spoke about how she had been discriminated against because of her background. I have a son who is different, and I've always feared for him. Today, seeing this beautiful family, I realize that I'm not alone, she said, while the crowd applauded. The event not only promoted acceptance but also brought people closer together. Emma and David realized that by encouraging others to open up, they were creating a safe space for discussions about prejudice, acceptance, and love. Later, as they walked together, Emma held David's hand and remarked, "Did you see how people opened up? I never imagined this could happen. It's like we're breaking down barriers one by one." Yes, and this is just the beginning. We still have a lot to do, but every little change counts, David replied, his gaze filled with determination. Together we can make a difference, not just for our daughter but for all the children who come after her. At the end of the day, as the sun set, Emma and David watched the children playing. Their daughter, with a radiant smile, was surrounded by friends from different backgrounds, all laughing and having fun. It was the perfect symbol of what they were trying to build, a future where acceptance and love were the norms. I just want her to grow up knowing that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is who you are, Emma said, looking at David, and that the courage to love can overcome any obstacle, he added, squeezing her hand. With this certainty, They knew they were on the right path, ready to face any challenges life threw their way, with their daughter by their side as a beacon of hope and acceptance. The atmosphere at the fundraising event was charged with anticipation and enthusiasm. Emma and David had dedicated months to organizing the occasion, which promised not only to raise funds for diversity and inclusion in the community, but also to celebrate the love and unity they represented. The room was decorated with colorful banners, and the scent of traditional foods lingered in the air. But at the same time, Emma felt a knot in her stomach. She knew her father John had been invited, and she feared what might happen. As guests arrived and greeted Emma and David, she noticed John, who, contrary to her expectations, looked more irritated than ever. He approached with a scowl on his face and piercing eyes. David, sensing the tension, squeezed Emma's hand as if to convey his strength. "Look who decided to show up," John began, his voice laced with disdain. "I hope this doesn't mean you're letting yourself be used as a trophy by this man." David, standing beside Emma, remained unfazed. "Mr. Johnson, what Emma and I have is built on love and respect. We're not here to meet your expectations." Emma took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Dad, this isn't about you. It's about us, our daughter, and the future we're building. David is an incredible man, and I chose to love him." John laughed sarcastically, but the tension in the room escalated. "Incredible? Is that how you describe a man who has nothing but his illusions of grandeur? What do you really know about him?" "I know he's hardworking, intelligent, and a great father," Emma replied, raising her voice. "And more importantly, I know he loves and respects me." The conversation attracted the attention of other guests, who began to stop and listen. Emma felt the energy in the room shift, and a murmur of disapproval began to spread. David, sensing the moment, decided to intervene. "Mr. Johnson, your worldview is outdated. What matters is a person's character, not their color or background." "You have no right to speak to me like that, boy," John shouted, his eyes narrowing with rage. "I'm your father-in-law, and you should know your place." "And I'm the man who chose your daughter," David replied, his voice steady. "Emma is my priority, and I will do whatever it takes to protect her and our daughter." At that moment, Emma felt a wave of courage. "Dad, you need to understand that your prejudices have no place in our lives. You always taught me to be brave, and that's why I'm here, standing up for the person I love. But I also know your weaknesses. You're not perfect." The murmur intensified, and the room began to stir. "What do you mean by that, Emma?" John questioned, his face now pale. "You've forgotten the stories I always told about your youth, about how you felt out of place and had to fight against prejudice? Have you forgotten what you went through when you were younger? It's time for you to look at yourself and understand that your vision is distorted." The revelation had a profound impact. The guests, who had been watching in silence, began to whisper among themselves. John was being confronted in a way he never expected. Emma continued, "You taught me to fight for justice, and that's exactly what I'm doing now. I can't accept that you say the love of my life isn't good enough because of the color of his skin." "Emma, you don't know what you're talking about," John shouted, but the pressure in the room was suffocating him. He realized he no longer had any support. "You can no longer hide your prejudice behind a smile," Emma concluded, her eyes shining with determination. "It's time for you to face the truth and the reality of your own actions." With that, the room erupted in applause. Emma felt a mix of relief and pride. David looked at her with admiration, knowing she had freed herself from a weight that had been pressing down on her. John, now silent, was forced to step back as the community began to rally around Emma and David. The scandal brewing from John's past started to spread, and he could no longer escape the consequences of his actions. The night ended with Emma and David receiving applause for their courage and love. Emma looked at David, and her eyes sparkled with hope. The fight was far from over, but in that moment, she knew that true love would always prevail.